Knowles on the News. Susan Knowles.
And welcome to the program, everyone. So glad that you can be here today. Please follow us on Spreaker.com. Easiest way to find us is just to type in Susan Knowles, Knowles, and follow Stand for Truth Radio with Susan Knowles. But if you just type in Susan Knowles, it will get you there. Well, so how is everybody doing today? The election now has moved on. Ted Cruz has suspended his campaign, and it looks like that Donald Trump is the presumptive nominee for president. So how are you feeling about that? I know that some people who are totally against Donald Trump and the Never Trump people, that you are totally devastated today. Most likely. I understand that. And I understand that a lot of people who are in the Never Trump category have said they're not voting for Donald Trump. And I know people on the Trump side are saying, well, then you've guaranteed a victory for Hillary. Well, that's just not true, but Donald Trump is already in trouble. He is already behind Hillary Clinton in double digits. And that's a poll that was done before Ted Cruz even dropped out and before Indiana. So there's a real problem already if you believe the polls. This was a new CNN ORC poll. I'm not sure who ORC is, but anyway, CNN poll. Clinton leads 54% to 41%. It's a 13-point edge over Donald Trump. And that's the biggest lead, the largest lead since last July. And it says that she's also more trusted than Trump on many issues. Voters rank as critically important with one big exception. By a 50 to 45% margin, voters say Donald Trump would do a better job handling the economy than Clinton would. Almost 9 out of 10 voters in the poll called the economy extremely or very important to their vote for president, outranking any other issue tested in the poll. Now, she has the edge on a range of other issues. She's more trusted than Trump on terrorism. Anything that I hear with Hillary Clinton, because she's proven to be who she says she is, not. In other words, whatever she says she is and who she says she is, just the opposite is true. And so anytime I hear this about how trusted she is and how wonderful she is, I just know it's the opposite. Trusted on terrorism more so than Donald Trump. Does that include anything that happened in Benghazi, or does that leave Benghazi out? I'm confused about that. Healthcare, 55% to 39%. Now, as we know, she is saying that she's just going to expand on what Obama has done in Obamacare if she gets in. She's just going to go back probably to Hillary Care as it was called, and probably make it where everybody just has everything for free, and you and I will be paying for the everything free for everyone else. Now, with the income gap, 54% to 37% favor Clinton. Foreign policy, here again, 61% to 36%. She's so great in foreign policy that our ambassador is dead. Education, 61% to 34%, and climate change, 63 to 30. Okay, I'll give her climate change because that's all progressives on the left are for. Climate change, climate change, climate change. And anybody out there who believes all that garbage, you're going to have another thing coming to you because it's all about control. And they're going to get down to controlling even what you eat, what activities you do, when you do them, how you do them, where you live, where you don't live, on and on and on. Trust me, it's coming. But for everybody today who's kind of sitting here going, well, what do we do now? Here's what I say. I've said for so many months that people on the Trump supporters, that everybody is on the Cruz side is getting ticked off because of the way they're being constantly attacked by Trump supporters. Now, Trump supporters felt the same way about Cruz supporters. I didn't see that, but if you say that's what they were doing, then I guess that's what they were doing. But I certainly saw tons more Lion Ted, Dying Ted, and any other Ted thing that we can come up with. And Donald Trump coming up with that ludicrous thing yesterday about Cruz's father participating in the assassination or having some connection to Lee Harvey Oswald and the Kennedy assassination. I mean, come on. But we are totally broken and divided as the GOP. And already this morning I'm seeing where the Never Trump people, some of them are leaving the GOP. And again, I don't think people were listening when I said, you know, you're going to need those people. You're going to need those votes if you expect to win, because you cannot, if the Never Trump people sit at home or they vote for someone else, you're not going to win. Because so many people are going to go out and vote for Hillary. And already, as I just read to you, she's ahead of Donald Trump now in double digits. Add to that the fact that Never Trump people aren't going to be voting for Donald Trump, and you've got some serious issues. Whether you want to believe that or not, you can't let your ego get in the way of reality. I mean, it's worked so far, I know, in certain things, but it's not going to work in reality. And it was interesting last night that Elizabeth Warren came out and essentially said something on Twitter to the effect of, I'm going to do everything in my power to keep the hate-spewing Donald Trump out of the White House. So, Elizabeth Warren is a person that, if you've noticed, you haven't heard a thing from Elizabeth Warren since Hillary Clinton started in her presidential campaign bid. Elizabeth has pretty much stayed out of it. Elizabeth has said, I'm not going to run. And Elizabeth has some supporters that, let's say, over the tops probably doesn't describe it as accurately as it should be described. Her supporters are way over the top. They're so over the top that they make over the top look normal. Okay? So I was wondering last night, is this an indication that Elizabeth Warren, perhaps, is going to throw her hat in the vice presidential ring coming up soon? So that it would be a Clinton-Warren campaign there for president and vice president. And I'll have to tell you, I think Elizabeth Warren, had she run on the ticket, would have had an excellent chance of winning. Now, I know that Clinton had so many strings to pull and so much money that it may have overshadowed Elizabeth somewhere along the line, eventually, like it is doing with Bernie. But let's take that aside for a moment. Let's set that aside. Had it just been a quote-unquote fair campaign, I think Elizabeth would have beaten Hillary, because the supporters for Elizabeth are far more, trying to choose my words here, let's just say active, than Hillary's people. And, think about it. If she could get the vice presidential nomination, and let's say Hillary ends up in jail, which we know she's not going to because she's a Clinton, she's got money, and she's progressive. So no matter what she does, even if she did go to jail, Obama would just pardon her in the end, as he's going to do so many criminals that it's going to make your head spin. But let's just say if it were like the average person who would go to jail, then Elizabeth Warren would move right into the presidential spot. And let's just say Hillary gets in and she's there for 8 years. Woohoo! And then you have Elizabeth Warren for another 8 years. 16 years. It would be, I don't know, stick a fork in it, we're done. 4 years of Hillary, we're done. 8 years of Hillary, we're done. 16 years of the two of them, we're more than done. And you're going to see, as time goes on, I think you're going to see more progressivism. I really do. The progressives seem to be winning big time now. And it seems to be sort of the order of the day. And I think for people who are in favor of Donald Trump, I think now is the time for you to start clamping down on your candidate. Although I think people thought they were doing the same thing with Obama, and look how that worked out. But I've heard Donald Trump change his mind several times, and it should be a concern to you that he's kind of stepping back what he said about immigration. He's stepping back what he said about universal health care, and he's stepping back on a number of other things. And I know I've talked to a bunch of Trump supporters that they don't really care. It's like, well, if we can get just one or two good things out of him, that's all we really want. Well, I can understand that, but in the long run, how is that going to be a country that you want? And what are you going to do? Let's say he gets in and he starts turning into an Obama. What are you going to do about it? Now, maybe it would be easier to get him out because he's not the first black president. I don't know. You didn't get Clinton out. But so the problem needs to be taken care of ahead of time. And by that I mean people need to kind of inform Trump what they would do in the event that he turns sideways and doesn't do what they think that he ought to do. And there are plenty of people right now who think he's already turned sideways. But I'm arguing both sides here. And so what does that look like if that's what you're going to do? Or do you just think, hey, he's perfect. He's perfect the way he is. We're going to let him do whatever he wants to do because that's working for us. I don't know. Maybe that's exactly what you'll do. And you'll be tolerant of some of the things that he does because you figure, well, I can get, 1 out of 5, 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5, and that's better than I've gotten over the past 8 years. And all of this, of course, is assuming that he beats Hillary, which, if you believe the polls right now, he's double digits below her. And the Trump supporters no longer have the Cruz supporters to bring over because the majority of them aren't coming. So I don't know how you make up that gap. And again, maybe it's just, well, we know who we are. We're Trump people and we're going to win because Trump says we're going to win. I don't know. And what does that mean? What is a win? Are you willing, and I'm talking to the Trump supporters right now, are you willing to forego the Constitution? I have heard some Trump supporters who say, I'm willing to forego the principles of the Constitution for a short period of time in order to get things turned around. In other words, two wrongs are trying to make a right, which we all know never works. Are you okay with that? Are you okay with him setting aside principles in the Constitution in the short term to, quote unquote, correct things to get them back on track? And what happens if that occurs and you don't ever go back? That we no longer use the Constitution, that it's just gone. Because right now under Obama, the Constitution is, we have a little bit left, right? There are a few things in the Constitution we're still following. I can't think of any right now, really, but all of our freedoms are kind of diminished amazingly since Obama has gone into office. Just look at the Fourth Amendment, search and seizures. I think now you can search anybody and do whatever you want, and you're kind of at the mercy of those who just say, well, we have the right to do it. It's like now we'll come up with a reason afterwards that we were able to do that. And even if it doesn't fit with the Fourth Amendment, we'll somehow make it fit. So, I don't know. It's an amazing time, and I've said this before, I've never seen a time such as this. I do think that the GOP is in a lot of trouble today. And I think a lot of people, they didn't go over to the Democrat side, but they're certainly not staying with the GOP. I think you're going to see more independents going in the next couple of weeks, where it's just going to be, I've left the GOP, I'm not coming back, goodbye. And maybe that's what the GOP needs in order to turn itself around, or maybe that's what the GOP needs in order to just go out of existence. Because the GOP and the Democrats, they're basically, you can't separate them right now. I mean, they look pretty much the same. Thanks to people like John Boehner, John McCain, Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, all the rhinos that have made the GOP what it is today, and will continue on that way with people like Paul Ryan, Mia Love, people who got in and said, "Oh, we're gonna change things. We're the Tea Party, and we're going to do this and that." Yeah, sellouts, the word that comes to my mind. But so for me, and I know a lot of you out there listening, when a politician from now on speaks about anything, I'm going to just assume that it's the opposite. Because I don't know of very many politicians that I trust. I never put my trust 100% in any human being, whether it be Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, Chris Christie, Donald Trump, whomever. No, sorry, don't. And for me, today is just like yesterday or the day before. My trust is in God, and that's all I need to know. All the rest of this is worldly things that are going on that, yes, will impact me one way or the other, but I know who is in control, and it is not any man or any woman on this earth. So while a lot of people are angry and a lot of people are downtrodden today, I don't feel like that. I don't feel any different than I did yesterday or the day before. It is going to go on here in America, whatever way it's supposed to, whatever way it's been ordained to do by the will of the people. And we're just going to see where it goes. We will just ride the waves as we have for the past 8 years. And I think those that want something different are probably going to have to work even harder than we have in the past, or just say, you know what, it's too late, America's over, I'm done, checking out. And you just sit back and you don't participate in anything anymore. And that may be what you need to do. I don't know. Or you need to go out there and make sure that the principles that you believe in are somehow kept intact, or as intact as they possibly can be for you, for your children, for your grandchildren, whatever the case may be. Because I don't think that we're supposed to sit around and do nothing. I think that in general, for the most part, for most people, life is a struggle. One struggle after the other. Some are, really easy to get through. Some are very hard to get through. And that's the way life is and will always be until we're no longer here. So I'm not one of those people. I'm not going to sit back. There's so much going on. And I said this before the election in Indiana the other day. There's so much going on in this world that needs our attention, that we're not paying any attention to. And everybody, the powers that be, know that we're not paying attention. Right now, the UN and your president are negotiating on a piece of property that belongs to Israel. And they're negotiating to give it back to Syria, which Syria lost in 1967 to Israel. That's what I've confirmed by some of the stories that I've read. I can't give you that 100% because I'm not there. I'm not sitting there at the negotiation table with the president and the UN. So if that turns out to be false, we'll see. But from all indications and different news sources that I've seen, that's not the case. That the case is that they're trying to take that piece of property away from Israel and give it back to Syria. And Israel is saying, good luck. Good luck with that one, because we're not giving it up. And as I said the other day, that does impact us. Especially if you're a Christian, you know that it impacts us in what's occurring right now and what's being done. And we're not doing anything. And perhaps, the American people right now feel that we are powerless to do anything, that we've tried and tried and tried and nothing has been done. Well, we still have the same people there in the Republican Party that we're going to have regardless of who the president is, unless they get voted out in their own elections, which right now the focus is so much on the presidential candidates that I haven't heard anything about anyone who needs to go other than John McCain. And John McCain, Arizona, if you don't get this one right, please just... I don't know. I don't even know what to say to you. If you don't vote out John McCain this time, you might as well become California, because everybody's going to look at you that way. All right, and you don't want that label. Trust me, I know, because I'm here in California. We've had that label forever, and it's not getting any better here. But you aren't California. You're Arizona. Remember that when you go to the voting polls. When you go to that booth and you go in there, remember, just say to yourself, we're from Arizona. We're from Arizona. We're not Californians, okay? And do the right thing. Vote that guy out of office once and for all. And Harry Reid, anybody else that you can get out, whatever state that you're in, whatever state they're in, you got to do the right thing. You got to get these people out. I mean, if you ever really want things to change, you've got to get these people out and not replace them with progressives. We have progressives in there right now. Our country is becoming one big progressive country. It really is. I mean, you only have to look on social media to see what now is accepted and acceptable. That years ago, people would have been shocked or laughed at, whatever the case may be. And now it's like, okay, we can tolerate that. I mean, I have seen some things on social media in the last couple of days that I never thought I would see. And it seems to be, for some people it's not okay, but they're not doing anything to speak out against it or to stop it. And again, that could just be because we've spent 8 years trying to fight and get nowhere because of our Congress people. Let's face it, the GOP. The GOP has let us down for the past 8 years. They really have. They had all the power, and they did absolutely nothing with it because they sold out. Because they're just the same progressives with an R after their name instead of a D. That's it. You can listen to their principles and to quote-unquote their values, and you know exactly who they are. And I think there are some people who are willing to just not listen to that, not hear it. They don't want to hear that. So they pretend that wasn't just said. Like, oh, okay, well, yeah, I mean, they said A, B, and C, but I really like C, so I'm going with that. And A and B kind of cancel everything out, but nobody really wants to look at that. And I think as time goes by, I hate to say this, but I think more and more people are just going to avoid the truth. It's easier to deny what you see in front of you than it is to say, oh my God, that's the truth. So prepare yourselves. And again, for me, I'm not getting excited about this election one way or the other. Because I think we're on a path here that we've put ourselves on, and it's just going to be a matter of how we play that out. I mean, it really is. We have been a blessed nation, and I'm not sure that's going to last that much longer. I just think that we are taking over, and we're doing things exactly the way we want them to go and how we want them to be. And I don't know necessarily if it's the right path for our country, but it's a path that we've chosen. And we'll just have to see what happens and where it goes. And for everyone who, who wanted Donald Trump, you have Donald Trump now. So you're going to have to do what you can. I don't know if you can mend fences at this point, but you're going to have to maybe woo some Democrats over to your side and get that vote that would have gone to Hillary. But you have a 13-point deficit, if you believe the polls, and you got work to do. And so you have very little time to do it, and you're up against a power machine with all of her power machine backers. Anybody else right now would be in jail. Hillary Clinton, she's out walking the streets. They don't live in the same world or under the same rules that you and I do, and I know you know that. So what are you going to do now? Is Donald Trump going to be able to carry the day? Is he going to be able to have debates with Hillary and win? And more importantly, is he going to be able to win the election against Hillary? And as I said in the beginning, if she takes on Elizabeth Warren as her vice presidential candidate, that 13-point spread is going to get even further apart. And it'll be interesting to see now who Donald Trump nominates. We've seen Chris Christie in the background a lot. Kasich's still in the race, by the way. He didn't drop out and do the right thing yesterday like Cruz did. Kasich's like, ooh, I'm still going. I've even got more of a chance now because Cruz dropped out, so I'm going to stay in and ride this puppy all the way. If he becomes the vice president, are you going to be okay with that? Are you going to have a say in who Donald Trump picks as his VP nomination? I don't think so. But if you have any clout with him, perhaps you should be talking to him now about who that is and encouraging him. I mean, this might be a good test for you to see if he passes, if he really is going to listen to what you have to say. Maybe get out there and make a few suggestions on the VP and see if he follows through on that. And then you'll have a good indication of perhaps what it's going to be like if he wins the election in November. And then what is the convention going to be like in Cleveland? If any indication is what's been going on, what Cleveland is going to be like is going to make Baltimore look like a playground. So I think it's probably time to come up with some type of strategy of how you're going to keep those unruly, violent protesters away from the convention in Cleveland, because it's going to get ugly. Right now they have no reason not to do what they've done in the past and even ramp it up because their behavior is being reinforced. It isn't being stopped, so it's being reinforced. And they're going to have even more money thrown at them as it comes time for the convention. So, you saw the other day what it was like, and you saw them tearing down barricades and doing whatever they wanted to do because, they're getting paid. And they're young minds that absolutely don't even realize how much they're being used. They don't care because they think they're fighting for the just cause. So it's going to be a pretty interesting summer. And if you think it's been interesting up until now, it's going to get even more so. And I think people are just going to have to prepare themselves for what's coming. I personally wouldn't be anywhere around Cleveland because I've been in riots before. I know what those are like, and I don't want to have anything to do with them. And again, if what you've seen so far, if you think that's bad, I don't think that's anything as to what's coming. So buckle up. it's going to be one of those summers that goes down in history, I believe. And here's one of those things that I feel that we should really be keeping our eyes on. Other things in the news, like I said, are happening rather than this election. People are really starting to seem to have lost it, is the best word I can say. 2 words. They really have kind of lost it. In Michigan, a man was arrested for allegedly spraying a poisonous mixture of chemicals on food at 3 grocery stores in Ann Arbor, Michigan. They're looking at whether anyone was seriously ill from the low-scale chemical attack to contaminate food. Now, looking at the picture of this person, it is a Caucasian, a young Caucasian guy. So the authorities believe the unidentified suspect targeted at least 3 grocery stores in the past 2 weeks. Whole Foods, another one, Meijer and Plum, Meijer. I don't know how you pronounce that. And law enforcement officials are also now trying to determine whether he victimized other stores with his toxic mixture of hand cleaner, water, and tomcat mice poison. Oh my gosh. And somebody said, what if he's been doing this for weeks or months or even years and just suddenly somebody saw him? Makes you think about everything you buy all the time. Again, we are in some pretty dark times, and I think they're going to get darker. They just are. And you're going to have people like this. I don't know if you remember the Tylenol scare years and years ago. I think that was in the 80s. And I think that turned out to be a family member, if I'm not mistaken, who went in and changed the what was in the capsules of the Tylenol capsules, and people died from that. And it was family members basically who died. And for the longest time, people were afraid at the stores, and that's how we got a lot of these things now that are sealed. It came out of that scare with Tylenol. So, again, I think more and more of this is going to start rearing its ugly head, where people are angry, have mental health issues, terrorists, whatever the case may be. And we're going to have to be more on the lookout. And I'll tell you a personal thing. And my husband and I, we're still not sure about what this is. We bought bread at the store. And bread we've always bought before. And I opened it up. And to me, there was like an overwhelming smell of almost like a fingernail polish remover smell in the bag. My husband couldn't smell anything. I could. And later on in the week, he started to smell it himself in the bag of bread. To this day, I think somebody put something on that bread. I really do. Can't prove it, but I think somebody did, and I think my husband threw the bag out, or I would have contacted the company and had it sent back and let them see what it is. But people are going, people who are angry or people with mental health issues, if they decide, how can I best hurt someone, they're going to start doing things that you and I would never in a million years think about doing. And we're going to have to keep a lookout for things like that. And we are in times that are, anybody knows this. You don't have to, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to realize that things are not well in the world in a lot of places. We have terrorist attacks, local terrorist attacks in San Bernardino. And why wouldn't somebody do something like this? There have been speculation about EMPs. Had a guest on a couple of weeks ago with EMPs talking about that. Also talking about our grid, and we know in California people were shooting at the grid in California. So there's so many things that are going on, and I think as things become more chaotic, and hopefully they won't, but I think we're all pretty knowledgeable and feel that it will happen that way. As things become more chaotic, people will do more and more things like this. So it's going to be imperative that we do keep our eyes and ears open, that we're not just focused on one thing and we can't see everything else that's going on around us. We also know that Obama's trying to bring in 10,000 Syrian refugees right now and trying to bring in even more, maybe close to 100,000 before he gets out of office. All because it's an agenda. And we, once again, we're focused on Hillary and Trump, and we're not focusing on other things as well that need our attention. In other news, there was a shooting in Harris County, Texas. A disgruntled employee with a shotgun killed one person and injured another before shooting himself inside of the night transportation in the 20,400 block of Franz Road, Franz Road in Katy, Texas. Again, this is something that we're starting to see more and more of. And this has been going on for a couple of years, I think, but it's starting to increase where people just feel if they're upset with somebody, they can just go and shoot them. And I don't, as somebody who's a licensed psychotherapist, I mean, it could be any reason that they feel that way, that they feel their life is so out of control. How do we stop something like that? Well, it's of course it's not about gun control. If there's a mental health issue, then a person can get any type of weapon and kill somebody. They can pick up something that is not traditionally a weapon and use it. That it doesn't make sense to go out and go after Second Amendment all the time just to get guns out of our hands so that we can really be controlled by the government. But I think something needs to be looked at. It's a societal thing, I think, as well. When we are openly aggressive and we encourage that, and we encourage people to get in other people's faces and scream and yell, I think while we're not responsible for what somebody does, I'm just saying there may be a connection because people are being taught how to handle issues. And again, we're not responsible for somebody else's behavior. But I am saying there may be a connection, and as a society, we may want to look at how we handle things. And from what I have noticed of late is that we tend to, at times, handle things more aggressively than we used to. Where in the past we may have talked about a conflict more to resolve an issue. Sometimes it just turns to road rage or fist fighting or something as horrible as taking somebody's life that you don't like, a coworker that you don't like. And I think it's a real problem that we're going to, as a society, as a whole, we're going to need to look at and sort of address and see if there's anything that we can do. And maybe, for the adults, it's hard to change that behavior, but for children that we're raising, young children who may be looking at these adults as a role model, we need to somehow educate individuals that this is not the way to handle issues, that it leads to dire consequences like today in Katy, Texas. And we don't want to do that. I don't know if you remember years ago, it used to be that people would talk about how the violence on TV was on TV and in movies was causing people to be more violent. And I, as a younger person, I resented that. I was thinking, why can't you just be responsible for your own behaviors? And truthfully, that would solve everything if people could just be responsible and would just be responsible for their own behaviors. But that's not typically what they do, and especially these days. And I do think that some people are emboldened by watching movies like that or watching things like that on TV. It allows them to sort of live out their fantasy. It's the same kind of principle when you allow children to play violent video games at a very early age. It just starts becoming a natural sort of a knee-jerk reaction, that you handle everything like you do in that video game. You spend hours and hours and hours with the video game, and you're going to start responding to different situations in the same way and perhaps with the same type of violence. Now, of course, that's not to say that every kid that watches video games is going to turn out to be a violent killer. I'm not saying that. But I do think that that's a reason to limit video games and to also limit what young age you allow to start playing some of these really violent video games. I would even suggest that adults play a lot. And I think we all know that makes common sense. It's just that, I've seen in some of the kids that I've treated in the past, at-risk kids, that when their parents allow them to play these really violent video games, especially at a very young age, that's how they respond. And with kids, it's a little different. They get into this world where they sometimes think that the fantasy world and the video game is the real world, kind of a crossover. You can't really, separate the real from the fantasy. And again, that's not to say that that would happen in every child, but there are children that it does happen to. And I think there are some adults who get into these video games and in a way they know it's not reality. Some may think it's reality because of a mental illness, but those who know it's not reality, they just tend to use it maybe to act out, and they start doing that. They start acting that way. And so I don't know, our entire society tends to be going now towards the more aggressive, towards the more violent extreme of things. And I don't know, I think if you really sit back and you think about it, you will have to admit that seems to be sort of the trend. And it may not be that way in your world and in your circles, but kind of in some circles and in general in those circles, that is kind of what's happening these days. And I'm not an advocate for trying to want to control people's lives, either in telling them what they should or shouldn't do or what they should or shouldn't do with their children, but especially with adults. I think that people, at some point, we need to get back to accepting responsibility for our actions. Unless we have some type of mental illness, we have to be responsible for our own actions, no matter what's on TV, no matter what's in a movie, no matter anything else. We have to do that. I think for us, again, who are looking for something to focus on instead of just the election, this is something to focus on. Maybe get involved in trying to help educate and bring more awareness to what is going on in the world and how we may work together to try to prevent a lot of this from happening. It's something that also doesn't involve, let's just take away Second Amendment rights. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about some ways of just educating the public. I know with some of the parents with the video games, they were using those video games as a way to babysit their children. They didn't think about the consequences. It really didn't, I guess, for some of them, it really didn't even matter. They were just wanting to babysit their kids so that they didn't have to do a lot of the work. And a lot of the kids, while it's not always, it's never, okay, it's never good to just sit your kid down in front of a show or whatever and use that as a babysitter on a regular basis. A lot of these parents with the at-risk kids, they just couldn't handle it. Most of these people are single parents trying to raise a child that has a lot of issues, and it's very difficult to have to do that 24/7 without help. And so using the video games was a way of, for them, having a moment's reprieve. And at the same time, what they didn't realize is they were making their own problems worse by creating this cycle of increased violence or increased acting out behavior, whatever the case may be, by a child who wanted to watch video games all day, was allowed to do that, and just started to view life as being, one video game after the other, and that's how that life was, and that's what you should expect. So that would be a wonderful way to get involved and to sort of train parents, and maybe even find ways to get these parents support so they're not using things like video games to give themselves a break from children that oftentimes their behavior is out of control. And here's something else that you might find interesting. Obama to name Stonewall Inn first ever national monument for gay rights. Now, says the Stonewall Inn, the Greenwich Village bar that played a crucial role in the gay rights movement, was given landmark status by New York City last year. But the Associated Press is reporting that the Obama administration will do even more to distinguish the site. According to two individuals familiar with the administration's plans, the president will name the bar the first national monument for gay rights. He's reportedly considering proposals that would involve cordoning off Christopher Park, a small sliver of land near Stonewall Inn and surrounding areas. So in other words, the government is going to once again come in, do what they want with property that probably has nothing to do with the federal government at this point, and just, take it, make a monument there for gay rights. Nothing with the military, of course, just gay rights. We couldn't put a monument anywhere new for the military. Or, I know, what about VA, getting the VA squared away? What about that? Oh, no. No. Let's just go and put up a monument to gay rights. What about to the Underground Railroad, anything during slavery, anything like that? No. Let's just do a monument to gay rights. Let's take a Stonewall Inn and put up a little monument there for gay rights. And I'm sure that the people who are advocates for gay rights are very happy about that, and that's it's all great, wonderful for the advocates for gay rights. But what about the other parts of our country that are significant, that need monuments to them? And I guess the argument is, well, they're already monuments to them. So, we don't need to put any more monuments for you, but we do need one here. So anyway, federal officials, including Interior Secretary Sally Jewell and National Park Service Director Jonathan Jarvis, are traveling to New York for a May 9th meeting about the proposal. City officials are still looking into the land's title, but barring any complications, Stonewall should be declared a national monument as early as next month, just in time for Pride Month and New York City's famous Pride. The Stonewall Inn was the site of a police raid in June of 1969 when patrons fought back and stormed the surrounding streets. They sparked protests in New York City and around the country that are largely seen as the start of gay rights activism. President Obama mentioned the bar in his 2013 inaugural address when he said, "The principle of equality should guide the country, just as it guided our forebears through Seneca Falls and Selma and Stonewall." His was the first mention of the gay rights in an inaugural address, according to the AP, of course. I don't know. It seems to me naming a bar in honor of gay rights, it just seems, I know maybe that's where it started, just seems odd to me. I would want something different than a bar. But, if that's what you really want, if you want a bar to be your monument, okay. It doesn't seem like a prestigious honor, and it doesn't seem like something that most people would want. But again, if everybody's happy with it, I guess that's the way we're going now. And Obama, of course, I guess that's the mark that he wants to leave, that, he was the first president ever with gay rights to leave them a monument in their honor. That's where we are, folks. It'll be interesting to see if Obama leaves a monument for people like transgenders. Maybe he'll leave a Target someplace, and I don't mean the company, but just a symbol of the Target. Maybe he could put that on the Stonewall Inn, and they could do a 2-for-1. I don't know. Again, doesn't seem like a very prestigious monument to me, but I'm not Obama. I can't think like he does, thank goodness. And then here's some other just great news. As the country just seems to have one piece of great news after the other. A measure to legalize marijuana for recreational use in California appears to be headed for the November 8th ballot. Woohoo! Celebrate. That's what we need. Yes. Marijuana, recreational use. Yes. Oh my gosh. A coalition that includes former Facebook president Sean Parker on Tuesday said it has collected 600,000 signatures, more than enough to qualify for the initiative. Oh, here we go. Democratic Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom and other supporters of the measure. Really? Wait a minute. You're telling me that a Democrat is in support of this legalizing marijuana for recreational use? You've got to be kidding me. I'm so shocked. And by the way, Gavin Newsom, he wants to be the governor of California so bad he can taste it. Anyway, he's kicked off a plan to kick off a campaign for voter approval of the Adult Use of Marijuana Act. Ooh. And he's going to do that in San Francisco. The measure would allow adults ages 21 and older to possess, transport, and use up to 1 ounce of marijuana for recreational purposes, and would allow individuals to grow as many as 6 plants. Oh my goodness. Isn't this such great news? We can become just like Colorado. Wow. This November, voters will finally, we've all been waiting for that. Haven't you been? I know I get up and talk about it every day. Boy, I just wish they would legalize marijuana here in California for my recreation. Yeah, that's what I do every day. This November, California voters will finally have the opportunity to pass smart marijuana policy that is built on the best practices of other states, includes the strictest child protections in the nation, and pays for itself while raising billions for the state. Woo-hoo! Because we need billions for the state here. You know why? Because we have so many illegal immigrants in this state that we're paying everything for, from health care to food stamps, from anything that you can imagine. And California is going to go bankrupt that way. We don't have the rich people here in California. A lot of them have left. They've said, you know what? Screw you. We're not going to pay for everything. You're not going to take every last thing that we've ever earned. Now, the middle class are still here because the middle class is trying to make a living. A lot of people can't leave. I know people say, well, why don't you just leave California? You know, it's hard to do that. For some people that are maybe tenured, or some people that are close to retirement and they know that if they left they would lose the retirement. So it's not easy just to pick up and go for a lot of people. So a lot of people are sort of stuck in California, sort of waiting it out, hoping it against hope that it won't get so bad here. And so here comes this initiative. Let's just get people high, and they won't care what's going on. They won't care that the world around them seems to be sort of going downhill. I know on 420, there was a certain section in California, in San Francisco, of all places. I know that's shocking to you. But in San Francisco, that allowed for that day all of these people to go in there, light up, and have some fun to celebrate 420. And what did they do? They left tons and tons and tons of trash because they didn't care. They're not the ones that are going to clean it up. And you know what? When you're high, does trash really matter? Probably not. So for all of you who are for recreational marijuana, okay, you know, California is going to vote this in, probably, no doubt. They'll just vote this in, and then everybody can just go and have fun. And here you go, though. But the use of marijuana in public and while driving would remain illegal. I have seen people pull up next to me with a bong, okay, while they're driving, and then speed off so you can't get their license plate. So you're going to tell me that people are just going to go, oh gosh, you know what? Let's just wait. Let's not do this while we're driving. Let's just wait until we get there. And is everybody irresponsible that smokes pot? I know that there are people that use it for medicinal purposes, legitimate ones. I don't think they're irresponsible. For recreational marijuana, people are doing that anyway. I hate to tell you, Gavin, all you're trying to do now is that you want the money from it. You want those people that are doing it under the table to finally say, oh, I can come out in the open now and I can do this. And, oh, by the way, here's the tax for it. And I'm going to grow 6 plants in the back. And in California, if you're fooled by this, I guess you're going to be fooled by this. But this is just another way to get your money. That's all it is. It's another way to tax you in California because they're running out of ways to tax people. Seriously. The people that are left, the middle class that are left, and the people below middle class economically, they just don't have the money to pay anymore. I think the ones below middle class economically generally aren't paying now anyway. They're getting food stamps and other things, so they're not really paying taxes. So the middle class is sitting here going, you can't get blood out of a turnip. You can try, but we don't have that much more to give you. And so Lieutenant Governor Gavin Newsom, a.k.a. I want to be governor someday, has come up with another plan. Oh, I know. We'll just get everybody high and happy. We'll convince them that it's okay. Plant your plants in the back. We know you're going to be responsible. And we'll just tax you a little bit. It won't, it's for your own good. We need all of this money. It just so you can continue to have that little plot. I'll just tell you something. In San Francisco, I don't know where you're going to grow your pot because they're taking away your ability to own property there. Agenda 2030. If you haven't heard about it, look it up. Look up Agenda 21 if you haven't heard about that. Pretty soon you're going to have to put your pot in a pot because there's going to be no place else. There's not going to be any dirt around for you to use because that's the San Francisco way. And if they get their chance, they'll probably do that to the rest of the state. And they'll come up with good reasons why they're doing that. And everybody will go, well, I got my pot. I really don't care what you're talking about. If you want to increase my pot supply back here and let me grow about 6 more, I'll give you a little bit more. Because I think the government's finding out that the drugs that they give people are the way to keep them fat, dumb, and happy or just high. And that way they can get away with doing a lot of things. And the state of our society right now in general, since we're kind of in a dark place in a lot of respects and a lot of different things of what's happening around our country and around the world, take a little pot and smoke it, and pretty soon it won't matter. And like I said, that doesn't apply to everyone, but for those people who are going to smoke pot, and you know who you are, you're not going to care that much about what's going on as long as you can have your pot, right? You can have your pot and smoke it too. So look for that, Californians. Look for that on the ballot. And then look at Colorado and see how well things are working out there. And people have already given up hope on California anyway. So I guess we can't do anything else that people are going to like us any less. And I've always said, and I'm going to continue to say it, what happens in California used to stay in California, not anymore. It's going to eventually come over to your state. Each state's going to look at that now as like, oh, wow, revenue producing. This is great. Yes. It's working so well in Colorado, and maybe it'll work in California, and we can do it our state too. But don't worry. We're not going to let your kids get pot. Just because the pot's growing in the back and your kids live there too, don't worry, be happy. We're not going to let anything happen to your children. And if they do get into the pot plants, we're going to take your kids away from you. Then we'll take care of them in CPS, and you won't have to worry about it anymore. Think I'm exaggerating? I hope so. I hope I'm exaggerating and just being sarcastic here, but these days you just can't be sure whether it's sarcasm or it's going to be reality. I guess time will tell. And in final news, John Kasich finally dropped out of the race. That's right. For all you people who were supporting John Kasich till the end was now. The end is now. He's out of the race. I don't know what he's going to go back and do. Whatever it was he wasn't doing before, he'll go back and not do it again. So maybe you could look for him to see if Donald Trump is going to now bring him on as vice president. I have no idea. I hope not. I hope John Kasich just goes away and we never hear about him ever again. I can't believe that man stayed in the race this long. You never know what's going to happen. Something new every day. something a little bit more ridiculous sometimes. Hopefully, more encouraging news will come along the way, and we can start to turn this country around and take our country back. Until next time, it's Susan Knowles with Knowles on the News. God bless you.